This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. Before we get started with our guest today, as you know, if you listen to my podcast, I very rarely advertise on here, but every now and then I do throw in something about Whoop, the Whoop strap, and it's about the only thing that I have really talked about on here much, and it's because I like the Whoop strap. The Whoop strap is something you wear on your wrist that gives you data on how you sleep and exertion throughout the day and that kind of thing. It gives you a score. And so if that's something you're interested in, I have a whole podcast where I interviewed the people at Whoop. It was a year or so ago, but you can go back and find that. And you can also get a discount by going to join.whoop. That's WHOOP.com/FitRx. So I would encourage you to check into that. So anyway, today we're just going to have a conversation with a friend of mine. And so every now and then I like having somebody on the show just to kind of talk about how changing their lifestyle has benefited their health. And I just think it's cool to hear these individual testimonies, and not just, from a doctor, talking about the sciencey stuff, but just an actual person who has done this and lives it, and just kind of what it has done for them. And always get a positive response from listeners, for these people that come on and just kind of tell their story. And so that's what we're going to hear today from Robyn Dobbins. And I've known her for a little while now, and she is very much into just the low carb community. Didn't always start out that way. She's just super healthy now, and I'm just going to let her tell her story. So Robyn, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Dr. Greg, for inviting me on. And I'm happy to share. I love to really just hope to inspire people to take that step if they're kind of thinking about changing how they eat. I feel like getting the stories out there are very important. So I appreciate that you have this venue to get that story out. And I appreciate that you've invited me to join you today.
Well, I guess let's just start from the beginning. So let's rewind to, and actually I was, just before we recorded, I saw a before picture of you, which I hadn't really seen before. And it was kind of before and after. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, you don't even look like the same you. And that was in 2015. So let's just kind of start then or before then, and talk about kind of where you were and what made you realize you needed to kind of change some things, and how you got focused on this lifestyle, and just kind of tell your story.
Sure. So I guess I'm just, a typical person. I feel like the way I grew up would be considered normal, foods on the table and activities that we do, and that sort of thing. But I will say that I did have some struggles in high school. I started to be very, very down on myself, and that ended up later on in life becoming a diagnosis of being a depression and of being bipolar as well. But I didn't really focus on that so early. Like in that picture that you had seen of me in 2015, I actually was very heavily medicated, and I was on a hiking trip, and I could not get to the top of the mountain because my medication was just so strong that I only made it about halfway up and had to turn around and go back. This was in North Carolina. Those mountains are nothing compared to, say, the ones in Colorado, which I now jump up and down all the time and have no problems when I go visit. So that's quite a difference. So anyway, I was everything was normal. I have a family. I'm married. I have 2 kids, and uh, we're just chugging along. And except for the fact that I'm not well mentally, I'm unaware of anything that having to do with my weight. So really, that was not anything that had to do with why I decided to change how I ate. What happened was when I was turning 40, I went to my doctor, and um, they did their normal, you're 40, this is the blood work we're gonna run, and my cholesterol levels were not within the range that my doctor was pleased with, and he wanted to put me on a statin. Reversing or rewinding a little bit, my husband is was listening to podcast and had heard Vinnie Tortorich talk about just health and lifestyle, and he has what's called NSNG, no sugars, no grains. So just a little bit in the back of my head, I knew at that time that there was maybe something I could do that wasn't go on medication, because at the time I was on a cocktail of medications for my mental health, and I just really didn't want to add something else. So I asked my doctor, and I think this is amazing now, even now, I still think this is amazing. I asked my doctor, can I have 6 months to change my diet and see if that makes any difference? And this is just a conventional doctor in the system. And he looked at me, he said, nah, you're not going to die. Go ahead, give yourself 6 months. So just the day after my 40th birthday, I said, that's it. I'm going all in NSNG, and I cut out all sugars, all grains, and also all seed oils. I can't say that that was the easiest road. There's always times when the journey is always evolving. So early on, I was cutting out sugars and grains and making, lots of vegetables, very vegetable heavy, or at least the equal amount of meat and vegetables on the plate. And then I was a huge ice cream fanatic, and I would have a very large bowl of ice cream every night prior to that. So I had kind of switched over. I taught myself how to eat high-fat Greek yogurt, or just berries and cream, something to kind of take that dessert edge off. And that's how I handled that first 6 months. I went back to the doctor. We took the blood work. He said, whatever it is that you're doing is working. Keep going. And I have not turned back.
And
aside
he was
from
mainly
some slip-ups.
And he was mainly just looking at cholesterol, pretty much, right?
Just cholesterol numbers, and not even like particle sizes or anything like that. It was just the
so
total cholesterol.
Let's go a little deeper into that before you keep going.
Sure.
So you sounds like pretty much eating a standard American diet, prior to that. And so you just went kind of all in. And so how difficult was that? Would you recommend people do it that way, or do you recommend people kind of more ease into that, and just kind of talk about a little bit about that transition and how that went?
Honestly, I believe that really depends on the person. I think there's some people that they have there's what we don't talk about a lot when we're talking about diet in general. And I don't mean I'm going on a diet and there's an end date. I mean diet as in what a human eats to survive. And when we talk about that in general is we don't really think about maybe the addictive qualities of certain foods. And I think that does play a huge role. So if somebody were to ask me how to actually go into it, I ripped the Band-Aid off, but I might not be very typical. A lot of people have to ease into it. And, sometimes I'm going to cut out seed oils. And just anything that if you just cut out anything that has seed oils, you're going to end up cutting out a lot of things that are super processed or have grains or sugar in them anyway. So that's a good place to start. And then some people, you have to ease into it. They just can't get rid of some. We get questions all the time simply about chewing gum. And, people have those habits that they have. And we encourage them to eventually, keep in mind, eventually you're going to have to get rid of this. So, I really do think it depends on the person, on their personality. As a child, I was always called stubborn. And so I had just, when I put my mind to something, I have that sheer determination. And so I do that, but I don't know that I'm typical in that way.
Okay. So you're doing this no sugar, no grains for 6 months. You go back, your cholesterol numbers look good. How did you feel otherwise? Had you lost weight? Kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so I did. What was not, and a lot of people go into changing the way they eat and go into something that is keto or keto-ish or whatever. At the time, I didn't even know that word. We were just simply NSNG. So I didn't, in fact, I don't really associate myself with keto. However, I understand that eating this way falls within the same category. So, but we didn't do we didn't have like those snacks and stuff, like all that stuff that's out now that's very confusing to a lot of people. That didn't exist. So I went into this simply thinking in 6 months, I want my blood work to be better. But I had lost, I don't know, probably in the first 6 months, like 30 pounds.
Oh, wow.
That's not, we're now 6 years ago, so the timeline might be a little off, but yeah, so I mean, I started feeling great. I started, I wasn't doing anything. I'm a mom, so I was doing mom type things, but doing something for myself, like just going for a walk, that was not on the table prior to changing how I ate. And I started just going for walks more often and just trying to move a little bit more, because I started having energy that I had never felt before eating sad diet.
Sure.
So this was a pretty big change right away.
Okay. So after 6 months, you're doing this and you're feeling good. So you just keep going. But you're still on medications at this point, correct?
Yes, I'm still in this very medicated state. And what's interesting is that in the field of mental health, there's really a shortage of professionals. And especially where I lived, I was in South Carolina at the time. It was really a dead zone for having psychiatric care. So I had actually I had bounced around from doctor to doctor to doctor, and eventually just ended up telling my general practitioner that every time I saw a new doctor, they wanted to put me on a new medicine. Whatever the card was out in the lobby, I knew that was the medicine I was going to get put on, the newest, most recent thing. And it was never consistent. So my general practitioner was writing my prescriptions for my psychiatric meds, which stayed the same. So even though I had lost, within the first year, I had lost 50 pounds. And I was still on the same dosage of the medications that I was on, which was now that I look back on it, it was definitely a problem. They were causing me to kind of feel like I was in a drug stupor all the time. That was getting worse. Like I couldn't fight it. I didn't know how to sleep. I would take my pill at night and I would zonk out immediately and just be in a just a drugged coma basically overnight, and then I'd wake up. But so that nighttime where the drug was strongest in my system, that was getting longer and longer and longer. It was harder and harder to wake up in the mornings. But it was not something that I recognized at the time, that the drug was affecting my daily, because I was also drugged. So there was just certain things that I just wasn't even thinking about at the time. Go ahead.
I may be jumping ahead in the story. You're probably going to get there,
sure.
But so at what point did you start to realize, hey, maybe with this change in the way I eat would equal better mental health, and maybe I can wean off of these medications? When did that all take place?
So yeah, that's exactly where I was going next. So we were on the same page. 9 months into my NSNG journey, Matt, my husband, was laid off, and he tried and tried and tried to find work in South Carolina, and it just wasn't happening. So he's the breadwinner. So he's actually from Texas. So I said, this is the time. I think we need to just pick up and move. So he applied for jobs in Texas and he ends up getting one. And we spend the rest of the school year in South Carolina. My son's a scout, or he's now an Eagle. And he's over 18. So he's not in scouting currently, but we went through all of his scout camps during the summer. And then we moved to Texas. That's when I really started realizing, hey, things are mentally improving. I wasn't really putting it together because the world was very focused on the fact that I had to move across the country. Matt had left 3 months prior to me and the children moving. So I was in charge of getting them through school, getting them through their emotions of knowing that the things that they were doing were the last time they were doing them in our home. Packing up a house, keeping a house clean so that it could be shown for the realtor, getting them to and from all their things, and it was just me. I'm not from South Carolina. My family all lives in Maryland, so it's just me, and I have some really good friends that would help out, but it's essentially it's just me and the kids while he's off doing his new job. We pack up and we move across country. It's and I realize it's hard, and everything that we did was difficult. But in the past, when faced with a really challenging situation, I would normally shut down, like not even be vocal, shut down. I could go in another room and just curl up and not participate. I will say that I do think that I could have done some things better because I wasn't completely packed up when it was time to move, but it was a little overwhelming. So, but that's when I started realizing it. And I was changing doctors, obviously, because I had moved across country. So when I went to and created a new relationship with a doctor here in town, I told them what I was doing. I was like, I've been eating differently. I feel a lot different. I read tons of books. So I started realizing that, these dietary changes could affect how your mental health and improve it, just like it improves people with diabetes or people with some cardiovascular problems. All of these things have some healing properties by eating these different foods. And I said, I just want to try. I want to try to see if I can wean off of these medications. And again, I'm talking to a system doctor. I am not in the low carb space enough to know that there's low carb doctors out there. And so I'm very fortunate that doctor was on board with it and knew how to de-prescribe the medication. She didn't just take me straight off. We weaned off over the course of probably 9 months. I think it took to wean off of them. And it was a group process, as far as I had a very honest conversation with my husband about what I wanted to do. And I had a very honest conversation with my children about what I wanted to do. They were the ones that were taking the brunt of who I was when I wasn't well. And I needed them to honestly tell me how things were going, knowing all along that, maybe maybe my brain isn't well. Maybe I do need to go back on the medicine. However, I know that it's harder for the person to notice, and I would need to rely on the people I was around to help me, honestly. So, and that's how we approached it. It was kind of a group effort on changing that.
So you were able to get off medicine.
Yes.
And you, at this point, you're still doing just NSNG, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And so how did you do once you completely got off the medicine and then just still on this kind of lifestyle?
It's, I've never turned back. I still have some anxiety issues that will pop up every now and again. And I do try to put myself in some harder situations, but I am very timid. I know how I respond to things. So like these conversations I can handle, but sometimes I get overwhelmed with other things. So I can't say that. I don't know, maybe that's just a learned trait at this point, but I've never had to go back on any medication.
Good.
I have I've spoken about this before. Before seeing you, I had seen Dr. Trove for about a year and a half, and we did an experiment. And he thinks I'm mad at him, but I'm not. It was a very it was a very important part of my journey to learn this about myself. But as it turns out, to go back to the beginning, my cholesterol numbers are through the roof again. And so we did all these tests. It's not familial, so we just kind of started assuming that I'm a lean mass hyper responder. And he was doing some experiments at the time. He might still be, where if you're super low carb, and it's making those numbers go up, then in theory, if you start adding carbs back, those numbers should start going down, which is it's an amazing theory. So I was all on board. I am so passionate about how how healing this way of eating is, that I was all totally on board with doing an experiment with him. So we did what we call the sweet potato experiment, which was that I started adding carbs back in the form of a sweet potato that I ate by itself with no fat or anything like that. It was just a sweet potato. That was my medicine to try to get those numbers to go down. Well, that worked. It worked very well. What we didn't really account for was how that was going to affect my head. So one sweet potato a day for 3 months, I started noticing my symptoms returning. First thought in the morning when I would wake up was, I want to go back to bed. I can't wait to go back to bed. That's a signal to me that something's not right. So I had told him that. So we adjusted the dose. We experimented with a half a sweet potato a day. We experimented with a quarter sweet potato a day. And this kind of went on. I think the whole thing was 6 to 9 months total. But that part of it did not go away. What ended up happening is things that I enjoy doing. I enjoy, right behind me is my rower. I enjoy rowing, completely stopped. I enjoy weight training. I had completely stopped. And I just knew that depression was back. I did not go back on medication. We just ended the experiment. And it took some time. It took some clawing out. But then going back to, I would consider myself mostly carnivore. I still never stray off of NSNG, but I eat mostly meat. It's very unusual for me to have some vegetables with my meal, but I don't say that I don't completely cut them out. I love avocado. I eat it all the time. So probably about 2-3 months later, I finally kind of crawled out of that, and the lights came back on in my brain, and everything's really just chugging along the way it was prior to the experiment now. But it was a really important part of my journey. And now I know about oxalate, which I've talked to you about. I don't know how much you've looked into that, but sweet potatoes are very high in oxalate. And it's very possible that I was having some issues with oxalates bouncing around in my brain and messing some things up. I'm not going to do the experiments again to find out, though.
So talk about, if you will, because I feel like we could maybe skip some time in there, but so it sounds like you're doing pretty well on NSNG, pretty well mentally. And then now you mentioned you're pretty much carnivore. But NSNG isn't necessarily, low carb. And so if you were doing pretty well on that, I mean, it is lower carb, but you can still have carbs on that. So if you were doing pretty well on that, what made you kind of continue on to where you are now of pretty much a carnivore type diet?
I guess that kind of goes back to that question of, will people ease into it? It's kind of, to me, like the evolution of things. NSNG does not have any like requirements for percentage of carb, percentage of fat, percentage of protein, but it is, your plate should be meat and vegetables. There should not be any sugar. there should not be any grain. I say it's very simple. It really is. If it's a sugar or a grain, don't put it in your mouth. And that's how easy that is. When we start talking about keto, we start talking about macros, that really gets into people's head and starts confusing people. Excuse me. I think that my evolution towards more meat was that I was having intestinal distress. There'd be certain foods I absolutely love Brussels sprouts, and I was eating them all the time, but they weren't agreeing with my stomach. And I just started realizing there were certain things that were happening. If I still eat tomato because I like tomato sauce, but if I eat a lot of tomatoes, then I might break out. So I was just noticing these things, and I said, you know what? I've come this far with just eating NSNG. Why not take it that step further? So it was just really just an evolution of how I approached eating.
Gotcha. Okay. And just so people know, because they can only hear us, they can't see you, but you are 47, or am I supposed to ask that or tell that?
I don't care. No, let's see. I am 46.
46. Okay.
And I'm turning 47 in a month, though. So you can say that. That's fine.
I was close.
So that means since I started NSNG the day after my birthday, I'm essentially 7 years into this.
Okay. Well, and the reason I say that is I just want people to understand, and I wish people could see your before and after, because now, I mean, at least since I've known you, and you are very fit. I mean, especially for a 46, almost 47-year-old woman. I think you told me, hopefully you don't mind me sharing this, but you weigh 115 pounds. But I definitely see some 115-pound people who, what I would call skinny fat, and you're not that at all. You've got muscle, you're fit. And so you've done very, very well, is my point. And that's what I want people to know is, you're almost a 47-year-old woman, mother who is fit, muscular. And so anyway, it's obviously
that was part of, yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that, because it's funny. People ask quite frequently, I've gone under my goal weight. They'll say, what do I do? I've gone under my goal weight. And I always like to tell people they're not going to lose so much weight that they're going to cease to exist. We don't just poof, disappear, but there's something we can do. And one of those things is to lift and to weight train. And so what happened probably about 2.5 years ago, I was under 100 pounds. So I was thin. People definitely noticed how much weight I had lost, but I was just a column of just a flat column. There was no musculature to me. And I didn't really like being under 100 pounds. I kind of thought maybe I should do something about that. So that was part of my journey. I definitely made a conscious effort to start actually lifting. And I had called, Vinny does consults, so I had called and talked to him, and he set me up with a push-pull leg routine that I had done diligently, I guess, except for my little sweet potato break. I have done diligently for probably 3 years now. Yeah, definitely 3 years, because I really started into it. I don't know if you've talked to Ben Bokikio. He has his 15 minutes to fitness. So during the pandemic, we got what's it called? The thing that he uses. I can't remember what it's called. So anyway, during the pandemic, I started doing that, and then I had talked to Vinny, and he gave me some things to do with just some free weights. And I just recently, just last week, actually started an Olympic barbell class. So
good for you.
Yeah. Like I'm committed to this now, because once you start seeing the results and you're like, wow, I've got a little musculature, all of a sudden then you want more. So that's where I am awesome. Now.
Well, tell us what a typical day looks like for you, nutrition wise. I mean, do you eat 3 meals a day? Talk about just what a typical day looks like.
Well, I will answer that, but I'm gonna go backwards in time a little bit, because again, I'm talking about this evolution. And I keep saying everyone, and they ask just to full disclosure, I'm actually an admin on Vinnie Tortorich's No Sugars, No Grains Facebook page. So that's why I get a lot of interaction with a lot of people who are, especially people who are new into NSNG. I do look at this evolution because when I was first starting out, I was heavier. I had weight to lose. And so I had started kind of after I got used to it, after you get fat adapted, I did start doing sort of a fasting protocol. And it was just out of necessity, just the way our schedule was working out. So basically once a week, I would do like a 24-hour fast. So that was where that started. After I lost all the weight, especially after I was only 90 pounds, that just wasn't something that was feasible for me anymore. So I'm now very much a proponent of eating. I want people to eat, even when they're first starting out and they still have weight to lose. If you're hungry, I want you to eat. Some people do very well with fasting, some people don't. And that's, again, something where you've got to kind of figure it out on your own. So now where I am is I do strive to eat twice a day. I'm not that hungry. The foods that I eat are very filling. So I usually eat lunch and I eat it at lunchtime, and then I try to eat a dinner, and I try to be done putting food in my mouth at 8 o'clock at night. That's so that I can get a good night's sleep. I don't want my body busy digesting while I'm trying to sleep. So I actually usually done eating earlier than that, but that's my limit. So I do end up fasting accidentally sometimes, because if we're out and about and I haven't eaten and I get home after 8 o'clock, I oftentimes will just say, oh, I'll do it again. But I'm not strict on the timing either. So if that happens, if I miss a dinner, I'll eat breakfast the next morning. And I'll eat it earlier than noon. I like to kind of mix it up a little bit. I think it's good to kind of keep the body guessing. And but if I start feeling hungry, I'll eat, and I don't try to push through that at all.
Okay.
I eat a lot of eggs too. So if you're asking me what I'm going to eat.
Yeah. So talk to us about that. So, typically it may vary, but typically you'll eat a lunch and a dinner. So what's a typical lunch and a dinner look like for you?
A typical lunch is either going to be the leftovers from the dinner before, if we have any, or I'm going to eat 4 to 6 eggs, cooked in a mixture of butter and bacon fat. That's like my favorite lunch, and I eat it all the time. Quick, easy. I make them over easy, and just that creamy, delicious yolk. I don't get tired of that at all.
Okay.
So that's typical.
And that's all you'll eat for lunch, is just the eggs?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Just the eggs.
And then what does a supper look like?
Usually a pile of meat. So we are fortunate that we live in Texas, and we have access to local ranchers. So we buy a half a cow every couple months, and we always have beef on hand, but we'll also eat chicken and pork. I am not a huge seafood person, so I don't eat a lot of seafood. Although I know it's so good for you, and I can't get past the fishy taste.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. But most of my meals are just piles of meat. We have a smoker. We'll throw something on the smoker. We'll just take it off and eat it. It's actually very, very simple to eat this way, because you're not worried about side dishes. I'm not worried about what's going to go with it. Like I said, occasionally I'll eat sauce. So I'll make I really love to make a meat crust deep dish pizza. So that's a sausage and ground beef crust, and then you put the pizza sauce and the whatever toppings and the cheese in it. So there'll be sauce in that. But I'll eat avocado. Right now it's so hot. I'm liking having some frozen berries. It's not something that I want to do all the time, because it really does trigger in my brain that sweetness from the berries. Well, I've been known to do that, and then like a month later I'm eating ice cream every day again. So I do try to keep that monitored very, very closely. But I don't do honey. I don't do any sweeteners. That is something that's different in NSNG than some of the keto world. Is we don't do any sweeteners whatsoever. So we don't do allulose and any.
Mhm.
In fact,
Yeah.
I've never had it, which I think I'm very fortunate. I've never actually even had it before, not on purpose. So um, uh, I did, like I said, evolutionary. I was making uh, some types of treats for myself using a lot of almond flour and coconut flour and coconut sugar or maybe some maple syrup or something, but that's all gone. I don't have
Mm.
a use for it anymore. I had a Thanksgiving where we took steaks to Thanksgiving dinner. We ate steaks and then I ate pie. And then I did not stop eating pie until sometime after Christmas. And I felt horrible. My joints
Mm.
were hurting, my head was hurting, everything. You put on weight, everything's just off. And I'm like, why did I do that to myself? It's just like oh, you black out and it's just
Yeah.
one day you wake up and you're like, what have I done? And you have to go back. So I don't even taste it anymore. I used to feel like it would be bad luck to go to somebody's birthday party and not have a piece of their cake, but I don't feel that way anymore. I don't have a use for it.
Mm.
I did that. I had that for 40 years and I don't feel bad about cutting that out now.
Good for you. So you kind of answered my next question, which was going to be, do you ever cheat? And it's hard not to. For me, I mean, if I go out with friends and we're drinking and you're going to have a drink or a beer and then you're like, oh yeah, I'm hungry, so I'll have a hamburger and french fries. And I mean, especially if you're out at a restaurant. And so is that difficult? I mean, do you ever, I mean, especially when you're going out to eat, I mean, do you ever just have a cheat meal during the week?
I don't. I understand people do, but I have a different why, and I think it's very important for everyone to kind of find their why. My why is medical, so now we know that I have Hashis, so I know that eating gluten is just out. So I don't want to eat anything that might accidentally have gluten in it. So that keeps me away from most desserts. I just there's nothing really available that I would want to eat that doesn't have it in there. That definitely keeps me away from all bread. And I have found for myself that even trying to attempt a bread substitute just isn't worth it for me. I'd rather just pile the meat on my plate and that makes me happy. So it's not important to
Yeah.
me. But I certainly understand. I mean, I have, before I knew I had Hashis, I did know, I did definitely did that, but now my why has changed. I don't want to mess with that too much.
Alcohol isn't a temptation for you. I mean, not in excess, but just every now and again.
No, and actually, well, so what most people don't honestly talk about is that when you drink alcohol after you've been fat adapted or in a ketogenic state, is that it hits you a lot harder. Alcohol always hit me hard anyway, so
Mm.
I just kind of thought there's no real use for it. So I would take some local vodka and I infuse it with different flavors and it was delicious. And then I just realized I stopped drinking it altogether. I was more happy with just the like the Topo Chicos and a lime, and
Mm.
I could participate in what was going on around me and not be in a drunken stupor
Yeah.
instantaneously. So I've basically cut it out. I'm not against it. I'm not opposed
Sure.
to it. It's a beautiful drink. It arrived in front of me and it was the perfect day. Maybe I would have a sip, but it's just not, it's not important in my world.
Good enough.
Mhm.
So if people are listening to this and they're just interested in getting started in this lifestyle, what would your recommendation be? You mentioned you do some stuff with Vinny Tortorich, and for those who don't know who Vinny is, I've had him on my podcast. If you want to go back and listen to that, and he's big in this community, has a big podcast. So, I mean, what do you recommend people who maybe want to get started in this lifestyle just to improve health or whatever? I don't know that a lot of people are going to be as disciplined as you are, and especially to not cheat and to go pretty much a carnivore-ish type diet. But if they're just interested in making some health improvements, would you recommend just starting out in NSNG? Is that a good place to start? What do you typically tell people?
I do. I firmly believe that NSNG is a great place to start, and a lot of the reason for that is it predates this idea of macros. within the keto diet. You can have a lot of success simply cutting out sugars, grains, and seed oils. You can have amazing success just doing that, and you don't have to worry about pricking your finger or having a monitor. Or I've never tested for anything as far as what my ketone levels are. It's my general assumption, since I'm so meat heavy, that I'm in dietary ketosis. And that, I mean, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't be. I've been curious, and I know that there's a lot of people experimenting now. They're biohacking and they're eating walnuts to see if their levels will go up, or just to see how their body responds to things. There's certainly a place for that for a lot of people. But when you, especially because now within the group, we get a lot of people. Keto is such a big thing now, and it's mainstream. And I go in the grocery store, and keto is written on these weird boxes of like cake and icing, and I'm like, there's no way that this is keto. There's absolutely, and if you go grocery shopping with me, and it's experience, because I'll pick it up and I'll read the label and be like, this is not, and I start screaming, and everybody's like, who is that crazy lady? So I'm tons of fun all the time. But it really takes the guesswork out. When you're looking at your plate, you're like, is this a sugar? No. Is this a grain? No. Does this have seed oil? No. I can eat it. I'm not having to write down, okay, I ate this many macros of this today, and this is my percentages. Now, there's a time and a place for that. My husband, Matt, was training for a jiu-jitsu tournament. He needed to cut weight. So he got very specific with his macros. He was weighing his food. That was and he lost a ton of weight with that. He was extremely successful. So there's a lot of success to be had doing that way. But I believe that gets a little hard. And I think he started thinking of it more of it falls into that diet mentality stuff. Like, I have to do this, and I can't have that, and I have to do it this way. And there's a lot of particulars in it. And I think it just gets overwhelming. So for someone just starting out, I truly believe that NSNG is not overwhelming. It's actually quite freeing. And it's funny to see people who come from the keto world. They're like, it's that easy. I'm like, yeah, it's totally that easy. It doesn't take a lot to find success. You can always refine, and that's what I say. Like, do NSNG strict for 30 to 90 days, and be NSNG. And then if you're not having the success that you necessarily thought you're going to have with whatever your goals are, because they're not always weight loss goals. They might have mental goals, or, their sugar numbers, or whatever. Do it strict for 60 to 90 days. After that, let's reevaluate. And perhaps you want to do like I've done and refine a little more and go maybe a little bit more towards a carnivore lifestyle. But there's a lot of people who never have to. They can stay within NSNG and never have to do another thing, and they're completely successful with their blood work, with their health, with their weight. It's a good way to go.
Very well said. Well, so how can, as we kind of wrap up here, how can people kind of follow you or learn more about you? I know you kind of work with Vinny. Do you have any other pages, Instagram? Are you kind of on social media? Or
I am on socials. I'm on Twitter. I think my handle is RMMLD03 or 2003, something like that. I'm on Twitter. You can find me somewhere on Twitter. And I'm also obviously very heavy in Facebook, because that's where the group is. So I'm Robyn Dobbins, but I actually have a page that I do post on. That's Robyn R. Dobbins. That's on Facebook as well. I have an Instagram that I only go on to when people are live, and I like to listen into people who are live. And it has one picture of my dog on it, so I'm not very active there.
And what is the page that's associated with Vinny that you kind of help?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's called Vinny Torderich's No Sugars, No Grains. And it's a Facebook group that his name is on. He has approved his name to be on it. He is not there. He's actually very active on Twitter, which is why I am over there quite frequently. It's fun to have banter on Twitter with all of the NSNG people. The group is private, so you have to ask to gain entry, but answer the questions that are on there and join us. And we really do strive to help each other out. If there's questions like about today, I was heavy into a discussion about electrolytes. It's hot, and people aren't realizing that they're draining their electrolytes just by being in the environment. You're sweating and draining your electrolytes. So we had a pretty heavy conversation about that today, and all of the feelings that you get when you're draining your electrolytes. So we do talk to each other a lot. We try to help each other out. We share recipes with one another. It's a fun group. We might be a little snarky every once in a while, but we're mostly a fun group.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very nice. Well, as I'm sure you well know, I always end by asking my guest if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
Aha, and I've thought about this question. I have like 5 answers, but I'm going to go with this one, and that's to stay consistent. I do believe that we're in this world where, hey, let's try this. Hey, let's try this. Hey, let's try this. The consistency and being patient is very important. And while there are other things that are available that you could try down the line, pick a thing and do the thing, and give it, 90 days and see how that thing is going, and then make the adjustments as they come up.
Yeah. Well, great advice, and just congratulations to you and what you've done, just for your own health and just taking charge of your own health. I mean, surprisingly, not many people do that. They just kind of, go blindly out there and either, whatever their doctor's telling them to do, they don't question it. And so anyway, you kind of went against that and did research on your own and took control of your own health. And here you are today, I'm assuming probably healthier than you've ever been. So.
Oh yeah, I would definitely say that I'm healthier than I've ever been. And, I'm very appreciative to have found a doctor like you who is willing to go out and try to find these other things and to try to help people with that journey, because I have been labeled by many a doctor as non-compliant. So as I'm trying to figure this world out, and the doctors just don't want to listen to what I have to say. So I'm thankful for doctors like you who are out there that are actually also learning things. I mean, I can't tell you how exciting it was for me to stumble upon you when we were in Colorado. I mean, that just made my heart so happy to know that I'm working with somebody who totally gets where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, and I'm realizing the more I kind of open myself to just these new ideas and stuff, the more I don't know. I mean, so definitely I'm continuing to learn, in this journey. So
you jump out of one rabbit hole and you jump right back into another one. That's how it's been for the past 7 years for me.
For sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, great to visit with you and good to see you, and appreciate you coming on. And I certainly appreciate everyone listening. Hope you've been encouraged and motivated, and feel free to share this with people who might benefit from this. And we will talk to everyone next time. Thank you for listening to FitRx. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like, you can check out our website at vibrantlifedc.com, or you can email me at drgreg@vibrantlifedc.com.